Hello, my name is Sean Wilson, and I can imagine that everyone here has a favorite book or novel. And odds are that book or novel probably has a film adaptation being made or it's already been made. A couple examples being Lord of the Rings, Twilight, Hunger Games, and probably the most popular franchise right now would be Harry Potter. And I want to specifically talk about why I feel that books usually are better than their movie counterparts. Often a phrase you hear thrown around with your friends or when you go see the movie is people saying, I liked the film, but the movie just didn't add up to me like the book did. And that was stated by Richard Corliss, who is an article writer for Barnes& and Nobles, and his article is called Books versus Movies, Which One's More Impactful? And there's several key factors that I've discovered from my research that specifically state why books seem to be superior at impacting people emotionally than their movie counterparts. And that specifically has to do with the influence that directors, studios, script writers, and most importantly, the two different audiences that go to see these film adaptations have when a movie is being released. Specifically, I want to get into the two different audiences. These two different audiences are those who have read the books and those who haven't read the books. It's pretty normal for people not to read the books. I mean, it takes about a month to read some of these books. They can be very long, and a lot of people don't have the time to do that. That's why they go to see the movies. They hear all these great things about this amazing story that these people spent months reading, and they just want to go see it. They want to go see it like live and in action, pretty much. And I'm going to get into more details about how that emotionally impacts someone differently than if you had read it. Specifically, I'm going to get into what happens with directors, script writers, and studios that can cause a little bit of mayhem when a film adaptation comes out and not everything adds up correctly because they all have different goals in mind when they're creating a film adaptation. For example, directors are looking to create, as Gavin Hood put it, who was the director of Ender Games, mind you, who had to do what is called adaptation theory, which is taking a book and making it into a film. He had to take Ender Games, and he wanted to capture the soul and the essence of the Ender Games of the book because he couldn't really create a perfect visual representation of the books because he's one of those directors who has had the internal argument that many directors have is, am I trying to create a film that is going to be popular, or am I trying to create a visual representation of the books for those who have read the books? Is that what I'm trying to do as a director? It's an argument that many directors have. Directors have between them that same argument, and it's probably never going to be solved on what's the correct way to do. But it gets into further details about what studios are doing. Studios, mind you, are the financiers of directors and scriptwriters when they go to create a film adaptation. They have all the risk on the line. If a movie does bad, that's millions of dollars out their pockets, pretty much. And so it's a struggle for them to decide if they're also trying to do that. Are they trying to create a popular film, or are they trying to create a visual representation of the book? So Karl Korber, mind you, he is a mental psychiatrist who's been studying this adaptation theory for the last 10 years of his life and written several books on it. I read one of his books, or part of one of his books, and he went into great detail about the emotional impact of books compared to movies. Studios are trying to create simply, as people have put it, as specifically Richard Santos and Simon Murray have put it. Studios are trying to create films that are popular for those who haven't read the books. That's their general goal. They're trying to create a work of art that is going to be popular with those who haven't read the books. Because those who have already read the books have already seen the story in their own mind. And Karl Korber goes into great detail that people who've read the books gain an emotional attachment that those who haven't read the books are never going to quite experience in the same way. When you read a book for a month and someone in the story dies, like in a dramatic fashion, that's a month of your time to that character just gone at that point. And a lot of people get very emotional about it. But when you go to see it in the movies, that character could die like 30 minutes into the film, and the same emotional attachment doesn't have the time or space to occur. Ian Onley, who's a scriptwriter, went into great detail about how the scriptwriting process really works with film adaptations, because they can't really just take the book and use it as the script. They do have to do some editing in some way to shorten it down. Obviously, you don't want to sit in the movie theaters for 8 hours to watch a entire movie. They have to shorten it down to 2 hours. That's sort of what is required. And studios will usually point out that They want a specific type of story. They want a story that is going to get as much information as possible across while retaining the core values of the original novel, but making it appealing to those who have not read the book. That can impact the audiences in different ways. For example, those who have read the book often feel like they're sort of cheated in the way. When they go to see the movie, they're like, that either that didn't happen or something else happened before that wasn't even told in the story of the movie. And those who haven't read the books obviously wouldn't know the difference. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how the movies were created. But that's not what those who went to go see the movie in the first place wanted to see if they had read the book. They wanted to see a literal visual representation of the book that they had read and fallen in love with over a course of months. And those who haven't read the book, they don't have the quite same goal in mind. They are going to see the story for the first time. This is their first experience of the story. So they're going to take everything in and believe it, no matter what a studio does. And that's why you get these filler parts in these film adaptations that don't really add up in the same way that the book had it, like a fight scene in Lord of the Rings, for example. It gets drawn out over an entire hour in a movie, but in the book, it was several different chapters and several different things happened to specific characters. And in the movie, it usually is 5 minutes something happened to that character, another 5 minutes something happened to that character, all while being flashy and cool, just to sort of distract the audience's eye. Well, what I want to bring up today is trying to unite those fan bases, because this is the major problem. Is that's sort of become the culture for studios. The studios have accepted the fact that they're trying to make money off the bigger of the two audiences, specifically the audience that hasn't read the book, because that's the larger of the two audiences, to be honest. Usually there's a lot of people who go to see the movie of their favorite novel, but to be honest, usually it's just people who have heard of the novel, never had the time to read it, and they just want to go see that movie. So the goal is to sort of unite those fan bases, and often these fan bases don't get along very well. Usually those who have read the book shun away those who haven't read the book, and that's not what should be occurring. What should be occurring is some way for people to discuss the problems that occur. Because movies, even if it has nothing to do with books, are not always perfect. There's some horrible writing sometimes that can sort of slip through the cracks, and people who haven't read the books will notice that. They'll point it out and be like, that doesn't add up right. This is the poor plot line twist, or something of that nature. And that's something that book readers that book readers should take advantage of. They should jump on top of that opportunity to get to talk about it and point it out. And what will happen is, if these two fan bases unite and they look really for they really do unite and they look for something that they want changed, studios will actually have to listen to them, because we are, as a fan base and the audience, we provide all the money that these studios make. And if we just stand by the status quo on this, it's sort of it's not going to change anything. It's going to require both these audience members to get together and point out the flaws and talk to the directors, write notes to them, be like, I didn't really like the way this sounded. Focus groups are very important to studios. And if a focus group points out that if it's both those who have read the book and those who haven't read the book, and they're both pointing out flaws in the plot line that they don't like from a specific script, I mean, that's sort of important. And I do have a graph showing right now that shows how critics feel about the movie compared to the book, as Anna Swanson discovered. And these are IDBM reviews compared to their Goodreads reviews. And it's quite obvious to see a lot of people feel like the book was better. And that's usually because it's the originality of the source. Most people, when they read the book, have a specific imagination in mind. It's their version of the book, and they enjoy it the most that way. And when they go to see the film, it's not what they imagined usually. I mean, it's their own version of the novel that they want to see. And of course, that's never going to happen. What you go to see when you go to see the movies is the director's imagination. The director is the creative mind behind every film adaptation. It's his imagination you're seeing. And some people like that. I mean, it's cool sometimes to go see. I mean, I love seeing Peter Jackson's version of The Lord of the Rings. Sure, it wasn't perfectly like what I had imagined, but it captured the essence of what I wanted to go see. And sure, there's moments where I can argue that it wasn't perfect, and I'm going to pull up right now. For example, in Harry Potter, there's a scene where Dumbledore is talking to Harry about the Goblet of Fire, and he's like, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And in the book, he says it very calmly, very cool about it, nonchalant. And in the movie, he yells it across the hall, comes running at Harry. I mean, that is a little bit extreme, and it's a little different. I mean, those who were not expecting it and who had read the book were like, whoa, he's really flipping out. Like, he didn't flip out this much in the book, and it's just a little different. I mean, that's what the director wanted, though. Like, that's what you go to see when you go to see a film adaptation. And that's sort of what I really wanted to get into, is just how the emotional impact really does matter when it comes to books compared to their movie counterparts. Doesn't mean movies can't be impactful. They're impactful in their own way, but if you compare the two together, usually the book has all the substance, all of the meaningful information. And that's what Carl Corbin went on to point out, is that over time, when you read a book, you really do get attached to those characters. And I do have another photo showing of when a major character dies. It's just like an emotional experience for the reader. It's like, oh, I spent like a month and a half reading about this guy. I was rooting for him. Like, Game of Thrones is a perfect example of this. I mean, people were like, when the Red Wedding happened, a lot of people got really upset about it. And the TV show actually did a decent job of capturing that emotion because it built it up over time. But if let's say the Game of Thrones had been made into a movie, could you really like gotten attached to all those characters within like an hour time span? I don't know. It's a very interesting question to ask, and more people need to ask it. And that's sort of where I want to leave it off today. Thank you.